Hello and welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. Today, I have the honor of having Mr. Steve Wohlberg on the show, and he is going to be talking to us about making America healthy again, starting with your kids and your family and you. You are not going to want to miss this episode. Stay tuned. Hello, moms. Welcome to the Front Parking Spot podcast. I am so glad you're here. I'm Jennifer Bosma, wife, mom, grandma, former teacher for 23 years, and now a Christian children's book author and your podcast host. Are you a faith-based mom trying to live out a Christian life for your family? Do you want to learn more ways that you can have power over your child's spiritual growth? Inside this podcast, you will find tried and true ideas to grow in your faith and be the best wife and mom you can be. So listen in as you're cleaning up, doing the drive, or matching that sock, and be encouraged to know that God has his front parking spot set aside for you. Hello, moms, and welcome to the Front Parking Spot. I am so glad to share with you today. I have Steve Wohlberg today on the show, and he is fantastic. You are going to learn so many wonderful things that you can implement right now in your family. He is a Jewish Christian from Los Angeles. Pastor Steve Wohlberg is a speaker director of White Horse Media, TV producer, radio host, seminar speaker, and author of 40 plus books. That's impressive. He has been a guest on over 500 radio and television shows. He has also spoken by special invitation inside the Pentagon and U.S. Senate. Steve currently lives in Priest River, Idaho with his wife, Kristen, their son, Seth Michael, and their daughter, Abigail Rose. Welcome, Steve, to the Front Parking Spot podcast.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. I'm on the West Coast, you're on the East Coast, but technology connects us together. So I'm thankful to be with you and to talk to the moms. And hopefully there's some dads out there, because obviously I'm not a mom, I'm a dad, but I have a wife and 2 kids, and I'm happy to talk about the subject of health and anything else you want to talk about.
Oh, I love this. And you have so many great topics. And I sent the topics to my daughter, who's a mom with 3 little girls. And of all these great topics, and this, we're going to need to have a second time, maybe even third time to chat. But I really wanted to talk about Make America Healthy Again and the End Times Health War. We really need to talk about what we're giving our kids to eat and ourselves. So Steve, share with us some of your latest insights that you have on that topic.
Sure. Well, I am very excited about the Make America Healthy Again emphasis. I've had a burden for this topic for a long time. And really, it started, I've been health conscious since I was a teenager. Somehow I just got into health, even though I was doing other things in the Hollywood Hills where I grew up in Southern California that were not good. Somehow I learned that I need to take care of my body so I can, live a long time and I can be a better person and avoid a lot of pain. But what really brought this topic to the front burner was after my wife and I were married. We'd been married for 24 years. After 4.5 years, Seth came along, our little precious son. And then 3 years later, Abby came along. So, but when Seth was about 3 years old, the most horrible thing happened that any parent, a mother or a father, when they look at their child and they see their child all of a sudden convulsing and having a seizure, right in front of them. I mean, it was just the most horrific thing that I can imagine. And so we called 911, and the emergency guys came and picked him up, took him to a hospital. We had all kinds of tests run. And it didn't take us too long to realize, at least the neurologist gave him an epileptic diagnosis, that he was seizure prone. So this was just so horrible for me and my wife to see our little boy just, writhing and convulsing. And so they put him on medication, and he had a terrible reaction to the medication. And he would wake up in the middle of the night screaming with his hands over his head, and he would just, over his ears, just yelling and screaming. And it just ripped my wife's heart out and my heart out. And to make a long story short, finally, we found another physician because the medication he was not doing well on the medication. Mm-hmm. So we found another physician, and he ran a whole series of tests on our little boy, and found out that this was a natural oriented physician. And he found out that Seth was loaded with heavy metals, with arsenic, cadmium, lead, which we assume he just got from the environment. And so this physician said, we're not going to put him on medication. We're going to get him off medication and we're going to do a heavy detox and get these metals out of his body. And so after a number of months, he stopped having seizures. We took him off medication and he hasn't had a seizure now. He's 20 years old. He hasn't had a seizure for many, many years. And we are so thankful. We just praise the Lord for this. And that whole experience just really catapulted my interest in health and studying the body, studying toxins, studying, the nutritional needs of my son and my daughter and my wife and myself. And eventually that resulted in my writing the book, End Times Health War, because I believe we're all in a battle. We're not just in a spiritual battle between God and Satan, but we're in a battle over our bodies and over our health. And Satan wants to take us down and make us miserable. And so this is all part of the spiritual war that we're in. Health has a lot to do with it.
Wow, that is so impressive. I'm wondering, how did you ever decide and get to the answers of how he got all the metals in his body? Was it from the air? Was it from food? Or what did you discover it was the source of that?
Yeah, we were not really able to isolate one particular source. But the more I studied this, and in my book, I have a whole chapter, which is the result of my research called End Times Report, Planet Earth is Toxic. And so the more I studied, I realized that there's toxins in the water, in the air, in the carpet, in the food. It's just it permeates us. It permeates our society. It permeates our environment. And so one of the keys, there's certain things we just can't avoid. Now, some things we can't avoid, but there are some things that we can avoid. And one of the key factors in health is to get as much nutrition in our bodies and strengthen our immune system and just the general health of the system so the body is then able to eliminate poisons. During this whole time, my son's hair was tested. He was very high in heavy metals. Hair is an organ or it's an avenue of elimination, just like your skin, your breath. When you breathe out carbon dioxide. Your skin gives out, chemicals. That's why if we don't take a bath or a shower for a long enough time, people will know that we've got, things that come out of us. If we go to the bathroom, our body's designed to eliminate poisons. Mm-hmm. And so if we put more nutrition in, and if we strengthen the body, then the body's able to eliminate a lot of these poisons and keep us healthy. So there's certain things we can't avoid, but there's other things we can do. So toxins in, but toxins out through drinking more water, exercise, eating a good diet, eating more apples rather than apple candy. And the list just goes on and on. So it's all part of God's plan that the body eliminate these things. And we just came to the conclusion that there's toxins all over the place. And it's interesting that in the process of analyzing Seth, I had my hair tested. My wife had her hair tested. Our daughter, her hair was tested. And we all had heavy metals that were identifiable in our hair. The hair is one of the ways the body eliminates toxins. So I realized that, we've all got it. It's kind of like sin. Sin has affected us all and toxins have affected us all. But so that's where, again, the focus as a result of my son's battle with seizures that really heightened my awareness that I need to be as healthy as possible and I need to do what I can to try to help my kids and my wife, all of us, to be healthy.
Wow, that is amazing. What would you say while you were talking? I was thinking, like, what are the moms thinking right now? And I thought, what are the top things that people can do? Moms, dads listening, like, how do I start this? How do I find out? I want to drink more water. I want to exercise. What can they start to do to make these health changes in their homes? Like simple changes they can do.
Yeah, great question. And I think one of the things we need to realize is that we can't at the end of the day, put all our eggs in the hands of professionals, because professionals, even medical doctors, they don't all see eye to eye, and so we've got to take our health into our own hands, and there are things that we have to do ourselves. And there's some really basic principles. I have a chapter in my book and it's called Eight Weapons. Let me get the title here. Eight Weapons for Winning the War. And it
Hmm.
talks about, it's based on an acronym called New Start. And New Start, every word has a letter at the beginning, like for new, the letter's N. And so you just go and you look up NEWSTART. N stands for nutrition. E stands for exercise. W stands for water. S stands for getting more sunlight. T stands for temperance or self-control. A stands for getting more fresh air. R is rest. And T is trust in God. And these are the and anybody that's, a good physician, people that study the laws of the body, that they'll all tell you that these are basic principles, that we need to get more exercise, we need to drink more water. So I think one of the first things in a practical way that we can do is learn these basic principles and then step by step try to implement them in our homes, try to teach our children. It's a very simple thing. We're so our whole society, and when kids watch a lot of TV, there's a lot of commercials that come on that are just promoting, Frosty Flakes and all this junk food. And that's why the same commercials, or at least the same television set, will also have commercials targeting adults about all the latest drugs that you can't pronounce and how they're going to help you with your life after they give you a long disclaimer of how this can give you a heart attack, can give you a stroke, it can kill you. But at the end of the day, ask your doctor if this medication is right for you. It just drives me crazy. So the commercials that promote junk food are connected to the commercials that promote pharmaceutical drugs. So
Right.
if our kids grow up eating all this junk food, they're much more likely to eventually start needing drugs. And so, it's kind of like, I mean, and I don't think that we can make changes overnight. I'm not suggesting just, to discourage the kids and to go overboard, but to encourage them to eat less food that is junk food and to eat more natural food like an apple. Instead of apple candy, eat an apple. And so things that we can recognize, like you mentioned, the ingredients list, you got it. Somebody once said that if you go to a regular grocery store or supermarket, and if you were, let's say they closed the doors for 50 years, and then 50 years later you walked in, there's a whole lot of the food that would still be good sitting on the
Right,
shelf
right.
because they've got so many chemicals that they last forever. So of
Yes.
course, the produce section would be, all the apples and everything would be rotten out, but Frosted Flakes might still be there, ready to go into your cereal bowl. So the idea, somebody once said, the longer the shelf life, the shorter your life.
That's
And the
crazy.
idea is simply to eat more food that is real food. And if you eat more, apples, oranges, peaches, plums, I've got a garden in my backyard. I've got an orchard with fruit trees.
Mhm.
Eat more whole grain breads. If you drink more water, if you eat things and drink things that are good for your body, little by little, the compound effect. I read a book called The Compound Effect, showing the results of little choices and how they have a big effect on your life. So we have to understand the principles, and then we want to try to model them and teach them to our kids. We can't go from A to Z overnight. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, but you just go step by step and help people to get more exercise, take a walk, eat more whole food, get out in the sun, open the window at night, a little crack, so you can get fresh air into the room where you go to sleep.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of practical principles like this that we need to learn and that we can implement and we can help teach our kids.
Oh, I love that. And when you were talking, I was writing down a bunch of notes. It's just simple things like looking at labels because we were talking before we started too. I bought some medicine for my granddaughter. My daughter told me to go get like I think it was something very simple, and it could have been like a gas or something. And I was reading a gas reducer, but I was reading the label, and it had high fructose corn syrup in it. It had many other things in it, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, look at this label, and this is supposed to be medicine." And I even saw that in Heinz ketchup. I was reading because we always get the basic Heinz ketchup and it's been around forever, I think since I was a little kid. And it has high fructose corn syrup in it. And I'm like, I mean, it's just little things. And my kids are actually teaching me, we've just been eating this stuff for a long time. And we're stopping now, reading the labels and seeing that MSG and stuff, the high fructose corn syrup. What are the other things that you think are the ones that people need to really stay away from in labels that are kind of like kind of they sneak it into the products? What are some other things to
Well,
avoid?
boy, there's a
Oh,
whole long list, and a lot of these words we can't even pronounce.
right, right.
And I personally, I don't focus so much on the needle in the haystack.
Hmm.
I focus more on the haystack, that
Okay.
we need to look at the big picture and we need to just eat less junk food and more food that's real food. I know with RFK Jr. becoming the head of the Make America Healthy again, one of his plans is to try to get a lot of the junk food out of the schools
Yes.
and to lessen the amount of like the red dye 5 and the different chemicals that are being put in our food. And it's amazing that there's a lot of chemicals that we use in America that are banned in Europe. They don't use them.
Right.
And so we're trying to eliminate that.
Hmm.
And so to get more, Kennedy believes that we're in a epidemic, a national emergency. It's not COVID. Now it is chronic diseases that are the result of lifestyle because of the choices that we make every day. So I think, like I said, I'm not a scientist that can look at every single nutrient or additive or toxin or chemical that's in the food. I think that the biggest principle is to just eat less of
True.
if you look at something, if you go into Walmart or Walmart Supercenter and you
Hmm.
look at a product, if it has a long ingredient
Yes.
list, then that would be
Mhm.
something that I would be short on buying.
Right. And and when you can't say the words, and it should just be basic like garlic, it doesn't have to have these really
That's
long
right.
15 letters things that you can't say.
Exactly.
And also in
Exactly.
baby formula too, as you're talking, because I have a granddaughter and we were talking about that too. The baby formulas that we had, even back in the day. And I've also heard something. I saw an Instagram story of a doctor who's very much holistic. And he said like the Reese's peanut butter cups that you and I had when we were younger have a whole different list of things in them now than they did back then. It was very interesting to compare the labels of the Reese's peanut butter cups in 70s and 80s versus Reese's peanut butter cups now and all the added things they put in. So,
That's right. That's right. We're dealing with big pharma, big agriculture, big medicine. They're all coordinated together.
mhm,
And let me share a Bible verse with you because a lot of people they don't understand the importance of health in the Christian life.
right.
And it's true that God's biggest concern is saving our souls. He
Mhm.
wants us to believe in Jesus. He wants us to get off this planet alive and to be with him in his kingdom and live forever. And some
Amen.
people think, well, because that's the number one priority, they think, well, health doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I eat or what I drink or if I take a walk. But the Bible also has many verses about the importance of the body. And so here's one in 3rd John, verse 2. John says, Beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. So God's biggest concern is our soul. But here he also says, I also want you to be in health.
Right.
And if you look at the surrounding verses, verse 1 says, This is the elder writing this. It was John, who was an old man, to the well-beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Verse 3 says, I rejoice greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in you, even as you walk in the truth. Verse 4, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. So verse 2 talks about health, and verse 1, verse 3, and verse 4 all talk about truth and walking in the truth. And that tells me that part of the truth is God's concern about our health.
Right.
It's not separate from the Lord's concerns because if our health falls apart, then, moms can't help their kids. They can't raise their kids. They can't work hard. They can't raise their children. They can't be good fathers. If we lose our health, we've lost everything. So God knows that. And the battle between Jesus and Satan also is about battle in the body. And if you look at the body and study the body, you see that God has given us an immune system to fight disease and to fight things like cancer and other things. So the battle is going on in the body as well, between the good guys and the bad guys, between the white blood cells and the cancer cells, between the immune system and Satan trying to weaken our immune system to bring us down and to, make us sick so we can't serve God as well. We can't be a blessing to others. It's all part of an end time war that we are in.
Sure thing. And what also comes to my mind is the scripture that our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. And that is what, when we put bad stuff in our body, and then we can even go off it would be a whole other 20 minutes, but talking about alcohol. And alcohol is a huge inflammatory component in our body, and it brings up heart issues, and it brings up swelling, and it brings up the gut stuff. I mean, it's really, when you really stop to look into it, and that's the adult part of it, but it's just crazy but I think moms out there, I really want you, this is overwhelming because you're thinking, oh my goodness. And my daughter has once said, convenience has stolen our health. But you're busy moms, and I love what you said about just going to the trees. Like, if it grows from a tree, if it grows from the ground, it's healthy. If it comes from a package, it's not going to be as healthy. And that's going to be the
Right.
convenience part of it. So moms, just be inspired to try to get your kids to eat healthier things. And it's like anything. Sugar is a detox. It's no different than any other thing. You have to be detoxed from sugar because you want it. And I know I get my sweet tooth. So we're almost out of time here. But what do you say? What are some comments on sugar and some ways to kind of get away from the sugars that are around everywhere?
Yeah, I think, a lot of kids are put on drugs to calm them down when they're in school. And the reason why they're so hyper is because they're eating too much sugar.
Hmm.
And sugar is heavily processed. It's not good. And so, again, first of all, I think it's just the awareness. I was
Right.
listening to one of your past podcasts, and one of your guests said, first we have to be aware.
Yeah.
And so the awareness that having too much processed sugar in our diets is bad for the immune system. It's bad for the brain. It's bad for our kids. It makes them more hyper. They can't calm down. And
Hmm.
so the practical thing is that when, the moms go to the grocery store and buy the food for the family,
Right.
is that we just buy less of the food that's really, really super sweet with the high fructose corn syrup, and they just start buying more food that is real food. And
Right.
I think the more our kids get away from the super sweet foods,
Hmm.
then things like, a nice ripe plum or
Hmm.
a peach, an apple, these things become more palatable. And
Right.
as our tastes start changing, then we become more interested and tasty. We like foods that are healthy for us. And so it's a process. Like I said, Rome wasn't built in the day, but just for moms to be aware and to start moving in that direction, and to teach the kids health principles. The Bible says, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made.
Mm.
And so God made us, He made our bodies. When He put Adam and Eve in the garden, they didn't go to Burger King right there. They
Right.
didn't go to Taco Bell. They didn't go to a Walmart Supercenter. They picked, not that everything that's bad in those places, I'm not saying that, but they were surrounded by all kinds of healthy food.
Right.
And so
Right.
just to realize that that's part of God's plan. And even the simple thing about chewing your food. I watched a report about a woman that was very, very old. I think she was in her hundreds, and a reporter said, "What's your secret?" And she said, I chew my food until it's a cream and then I swallow it. And I've never forgotten that. And so just the simple thing of teaching our kids, chew your food better. Don't just bolt it down. Because the more you chew it, it mixes with saliva. It makes it easier to digest. Your body has less work to do to break it down. The nutrients go into the cells more. And so, take a walk, eat an apple, chew your food, drink water. Little by little, these things are going to make a big difference.
I love that. I never even thought about that. Chewing slower and eating slower. That's going to help too. Wow. So many good nuggets, Steve. Tell us how my listeners can find you.
Sure. We're White Horse Media. Our website is whitehorsemedia.com. We picked the name White Horse because in Revelation 19, Jesus is described as coming back on a white horse. So we like that. He's the rider of the horse, and we're a media ministry. We have a YouTube channel, White Horse Media. We have a Bible school, whitehorsemediabibleschool.com. The main book that I've written that deals with this topic is called End Times Health War. And we have supporters that have given money for a giveaway fund. So people that call our office from this podcast and say, hey, I'd like to get a free copy of End Times Health War, the first 10 callers, or maybe 11 or 12.
Wow.
We'll give that book away for free. We have a toll-free number, 878-BIBLE, 878-BIBLE. And I think people will be blessed by this book and our ministry. We're here to help, to lift up Jesus, and to help people.
Wow, I love that. We will have all that in the show notes. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being here today. And we're going to have some repeat episodes.
I look forward to that, Jennifer. God bless you, and may He bless your parenting and your kids and your family and your life.
Thank you so much, Steve. Well, mamas, thank you so much for joining in. I know you are super busy doing all the things that can consume your day, but you took a couple of minutes to learn how God wants to build you up in your faith, family, and life, and He wants to applaud you for this. Please subscribe and review my show. This helps other moms tune in as well. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram at Front Parking Spot, on Facebook at Front Parking Spot Mom Community, or my website at jenniferbosma.com. Have an Ephesians 3:20 type of day, mamas, and be encouraged as you go for the front parking spot in your life today. God bless.